very warm Blighty welcome to Blighty Day Fiancé. We have a very special co-host this week. It is none other than our fabulous, wonderful, heaven-sent producer, cousin Dan.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm certainly more well than I was last week. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm not sure if lovely listeners can remember. Came in for a special one-off pod last season when I was working as an immigration caseworker, and I'm no longer an immigration caseworker. So yeah, things have moved on. The stress has been lifted. I can now be as politically incorrect as I want to be about the cast members, and we're going to have a great time. So
We are. And you know what? The one comment that I got on that episode repeatedly was, we want more of Dan. So you're getting more of them. Here they are. And hopefully they will be joining us on future episodes, particularly weighing in on immigration stuff. Now, for all you Robbleheads out there, the Robin fans, don't worry. He hasn't quit the show. He also hasn't quit our marriage, miraculously. He has a deadline at work that he's up against. And so our dear cousin filled in. Big shoes to fill for sure, but uh, he will be back later this week, hopefully. Today we're talking about 90 Day Fiancé UK season 2, episode 9 already. What did you think of this episode?
it's I find it really difficult to get enthusiastic about this. This one feels like the tonally it felt like a bridging episode. I think that what we're ultimately looking forward to is seeing more of Shane, who had Shane and Mert, who had a fantastic episode
Right.
last week.
They are the heart of the show.
Mm.
And I would go as far as to say the heart of the season.
They're brilliant. She's brilliant, and I think it's also wonderful seeing somebody who is gender non-conforming being shown in a positive light. I think a lot of the time within media and the way that sort of like reality TV portrays people who are trans, or even more difficult for a lot of people to get their head around, people who are non-binary. Shane is super measured. They are in a strong relationship. They are a strong person who won't take shit. And I think that the they're doing wonders for queer and gender non-conforming community. As somebody who is non-binary, and this is kind of like, I suppose, my first outwardly public announcement that that is the case. And you may not think of it to look at me because I present really masculine. I grow a beard. You know, I've got everything that a man would have. It's just I don't confirm as either being a man or a woman. I just am neither. And I think it's a lot for people to get their heads around. And when Shane said, I don't really do pronouns, and I don't really care what you call me. I'm kind of that mentality.
Well, I think I can speak on everyone at Mr. and Mrs. Snark Limited's behalf when I say it's an honor and a privilege that you've chosen this as your first public um, foray into NB-ness. I mean, coming out. I don't know what. Tell me what to call it.
Just call me cousin Dan, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry if that was the wrong thing to say. I hope the sentiment at least came
No, no,
across,
no, absolutely. It's kind
in
of
the
that.
right
It's
way.
that. I suppose in a way it's almost like a performative exercise of I want to be as confusing as fuck to the normies.
Well, I think you need to show up in this world as your true self, and, um, not that I'm comparing, being autistic to being non-binary, but what I'm learning over time and what you've helped me learn and what all of you listeners as well have helped me learn is that by being my authentic self and by being true to who I am, that's actually making a greater impact than me trying to adjust my tone or my attitude or my point of view to one that's more palatable to everyone's sensibilities.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think that's just to pull it back into the show. I think that's what the beautiful thing about Shane is that they are unapologetically them, and in a way, that's the beautiful thing about the UK is that whilst there are kind of issues going on, it's certainly not as um, culturally taboo to let be who you want to be within the UK. That isn't to say that it's not full of its problems, but it's a lot more progressive than, say, for example, Turkey is. And we saw that in the
sure.
earlier episodes as well.
Yeah. I just I really appreciate and I I know that this is going to mark me out as being very uncool, but I have Are you a Sex and the City fan?
Um, uh, Cousin Jordan does watch it, and I will look over the phone disapprovingly and be mildly entertained. But yes, yeah, we're
Sure. So, does cousin Jordan watch, um, And Just Like That or AGLT?
yes,
Yeah. So, y you'll have been aware and everyone, whether you've seen the show or not, will be aware about the controversy surrounding the non-binary character on that show and how,
Che.
um yeah, and Che is quite polarizing. Um, but one of the things that was raised in this second season, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying this, but something that's raised is that most portrayals of non-binary people on television, be it fictional or factual, is that it's a miserable existence marked by addiction, pain, and ever present suffering. And ironically, AGLT is no exception to that, but they also make reference to it. So it's nice to see that although, of course, part of their story is Shane coming out, um, as I guess, not assigned female at birth to Mert's family. Even though that's part of their story, it's not the entire crux of their story, and it's not what you think of when you think of their relationship. It's not the immediate thing that comes to mind, and I appreciate that so much, um, because it it's just nice to see. I mean, we have had, and we still do have trans cast members, and we still seem to be stuck on the pain of being trans and the taboo uh of your gender identity not matching your forgive me for being crude, but the bait and tackle as a listener
I
suggests.
refer to it as the equipment of my oppressor.
That is accurate, and I love that. Anyway, yeah, so we've spent a lot of time talking about people who aren't here, but what wonderful people they are. I celebrate them. I celebrate their love. We all do, and I'm hoping that with time, trans cast members can get there too, and disabled cast members can get there too. Um, Anywho, let's dig in. Shall we start with Rebekah and Christian?
Yes, just down who lived literally just down the road from me. So
Have you seen
in
them?
sunny Chesapeake. No, there is a plan in place that we may go to the local Turkish restaurant and see if Rebecca's working that night and slip her a 10 and then
Oh,
put
bless her.
the Blighty Day Gmail address on and see if we can get an interview. Um, yeah, I mean, that's I don't really. I generally don't like to call 90-day DOAs all that often, but I feel like this is sort of like your archetypical 90-day DOA. There are massive rifts. Rebecca is lovely. I think that she needs to kind of remove herself from this cycle of getting married because I also forget how like ludicrously young half this cast are this time. We're not dealing with
Yeah.
sort of like the older generations this year. You've got Tionne who's 21, I think Rebecca's 27. It's like why are you all in such a hurry to get married? Like go around the world, make some bad life choices and then maybe settle down. It's a bit mad this year how young that cast is.
They are young. Having said that, I was I was engaged at 21 to a different guy than the one that I was married to at 26. So I do understand wanting to get that part of your life sorted out. And weirdly, and I guess it depends on where your friends are in their lives and maybe even where you live, your religion, all sorts of things feed into that. Yeah, but I don't understand the hurt. Now that she's been married and divorced already, I have no idea why she would want to. I mean, apart from the obvious that there's the incentive of you can't be together unless you are married.
Mm.
I just don't get it with him. He embodies every male stereotype that I am
It's
repulsed
just
by.
it's just the fucking miserable, like slouchy demeanor. It's the mardy face. I kind of understood what my therapist said when kind of like you exhibit your inner child on the exterior because that's basically what he does half the time. It's I really struggle with with him. I think that he is a chauvinist,
Mhm.
and I'm giving that the full weight that it is. I think that if he could get away with it, he would say, "You stay at home and I go to work, work and gym." Um, I just really, I think that I don't even necessarily think it's the dancing that's the issue. I think that if she worked in a job at a restaurant and she got caught being flirty with one of the customers in order to maximize her tip revenue, he would have a problem with that as well. I think that he is stuck on the idea of his wife to be leaving the house to go and do something that doesn't include it.
Yeah. And there being 0 reciprocity with that. Like, he has absolutely no accountability to her for the conversations that he's having or the plans that he's making, but she needs to ask his permission for everything.
Yeah, it's when he
And we've
goes double standard my balls. And it's like, well, that's
ugh,
that is how it works, you know, and we've seen that trailed over and over and over again every time my feelings do a little jump because it's just like "Eesh."
I think you need maybe one of those in your life, like in your relationship roster, just so that you understand, um, so that you can come out of it and know never to go near it ever again. But it seems like she's already had that. And it seems like she wants 2 snake bites and not 1.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, like we all know somebody that's got the politics of a 58-year-old fascist cab driver doesn't necessarily mean you need to share a bed with them.
also, this guy cannot fuck.
So
I know that's a controversial stance, but I can promise you this guy is not here for your pleasure.
so this is something that needs to that me and cousin Jordan have talked about extensively, is that we haven't seen anybody in the 90-day multiverse that we think can fuck. Like no, like nobody's coming, you're never watching it thinking, you know what, I think that Kelly's a really really unselfish lover, or like, you know, it'd be really nice to just be held by Bilal after he's fucking like rammed you into the mattress. Like nobody's ever saying that, or nobody's ever saying, "I wonder if Big Egg's got a cousin." It doesn't. It's not happening. Like,
No. You know, I'm trying to think, and the only person that I can think of potentially would be Alexi of Lauren and Alexi, but that might be because I'm very attracted to Israeli men, and he's half Russian, half Israeli, which does even more things for me. Um, so I'm probably not the best person to weigh in on that impartially. But yeah, I mean, I can't think of any man who would be a generous lover on any of the franchises. Listeners, let us know. If you think any cast member, present or previous, you know who I think would surprise you though, and I'm not just saying this um, because he was very nice to us last year. And I'll get hate for this. I think Richard would surprise you.
I mean, sometimes in watching this series, in watching this season, I have watched it thinking, "Come back, Richard, all's forgiven," because it would be, whilst
Right?
being politically very incorrect, it was also entertaining, I suppose is the best way to put it. And I know that that's a controversial opinion, but sometimes like edge lords are funny, and that's the long and short of it. He's been
I think I
posting
think
some
what
zesty stuff recently, but yeah.
the problem that we have is that normally when you have a cast member like Richard, the fun is in watching them be humbled and watching them be kind of shown up. I mean, I've said this many times before. The reason I love this franchise is because I think it's a stealth, or should when it's done right, should be a stealth takedown of uh both Western exceptionalism and the patriarchy as a whole. And so when it's done right, I would really love for Richard to come back and end up with someone who makes him do the dishes and clean the house and, uh, kind of brings him down to heel, so to speak, in a way that would be satisfying for the viewers. And I think because we only got to see this one side of him. And again, I'm partially biased because I've gotten to know him a bit more on a human level and not on a TV personality level. Um and I he's quite funny. But yeah, I know that that's not a popular opinion and everyone's, but I think we would have all gotten some satisfaction out of seeing him end up with someone like Mercy, for example, who just doesn't take anyone's shit, you know? Um, I don't know if that's the type that he would go for, but, well, having said that, I mean, Kathleen was no shrinking violet. But yeah, Rebecca, dump him, dump him now. I appreciate that sometimes we need to learn things the hard way. You've already learned it the hard way. Um, if you feel that you need to learn it again, maybe somebody closer to home. I don't mean that in a xenophobic way. I just mean someone that doesn't legally have to sleep in your bed in order for you to learn that lesson. And like I said, I've got no time for this guy. I don't think he's interesting. I think he is a chauvinist pig and he eats like he was raised in a barn.
Oh my god, I forg yeah, I'm getting that it looked as though that dinner was his own personal Vietnam, just the way that he was kind of like just like that Sunday lunch was just and also the thing is that that Sunday lunch looked so bad. It looked awful.
That
The
that
meat
looked
was
like
anemic, it was just terrible.
that looked like the food from Calvin and Hobbes,
Yes,
where it's just like a blob of yellow, a sort of a brown cube, and a blob of green.
and Calvin always thought his mum's cooking was shit, so that says all you need to know.
There you go. There you go. Um, right. Tionne or Tionne, is it Tionne or Tionne?
Tion.
Tionne and David or
Mm.
David or David, whatever you like. By the way, you used an expression that maybe not everybody knows earlier. So can you tell our uninitiated listeners what a Mardy bum is?
A Mardy bum is basically a sullen, grouchy, no, sorry, I wasn't. I was going to say typically male, but definitely male, um, surly individual. The Arctic Monkeys wrote a song about it. Go and look it up. Um, I mean, what's yeah? So that's the definition of Mardy bum. But yeah, Tion and David are. I don't want to go two for two here. I think this is firmly a Blighty Day DOA. I think that Tion went and did the all inclusive and thought that that was what the Dom rep was like all the way through. Yeah, I can't see this ending well at all. Again,
Ugh,
she's 21. Like it's one of those things where it's like I don't know if I can blame her because she is so damn young.
that's the
Um,
thing. I'm so and Robin is the same. I mean, we're so reluctant to pile on with her because she's a baby. Eh, and not only that, she's so sheltered and obviously has so little self-awareness, and I don't mean that in a condescending or pedantic way. I mean, I can I think we all know that she's not presented to us as the hero of the story, or the shiro even. But the other thing that came across, and I don't know if you got this feeling or if this was just something that I'm hyper clued into uh because of my history with film and television and everything. But when the camera, she doesn't know how to be on camera, which is not to say that the camera doesn't love her. She's beautiful, she photographs beautifully. But when she's in the car, for example, she's talking like this, like she's hyper aware. Um, the people on the Patreon will be able to see the video. But she's sort of looking out the corner of her eye and like willing herself not to look at the camera and to talk to David the whole time. Like she's so hyper aware of the camera and is so over the top in her reactions to things. It really takes me out of it. And
Do
so it's
you
hard for me to invest in it.
do you think that that's also, and I this isn't me kind of like psychoanalyzing, but do you think there's also a little bit of vanity in that as well, in so much as she's fixated on the camera because it's on her, or do you think that she's just not media trained and she's not used to the camera?
I think that now I haven't looked on her social media, so I don't know. But I think that I mean, that generation have their phones on them all the time. They know all their angles. And I'm not saying this with disdain. I'm saying it with admiration because I went to fucking film school and I don't know my good angles. I ought to. I can figure it out for other people. I can't do it for myself. But so you would think that she would naturally kind of be always aware of how she looks and what she's doing, but it's almost like the opposite is true here. She's so conscious of the fact that there's a camera crew there. Um, but I'll put it to you this way: it seems like there is a lot going on behind the eyes, and
Mm.
that's not something that I can say of Louise or Jose, for example, who are both very comfortable. You don't feel like you're intruding when Louise and Jose are on screen because they both have a degree of savvy when it comes to the movements that are being made around them.
They're
And I
both
think even the
influences, yeah.
edits. Yeah, 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 exactly. So regarding David and Tionne, cousin, um, what do you think is going to be a more divisive issue in their relationship? Is it going to be Tionne's standards when it comes to, because she set out a very specific protocol, if you like, for how she thinks a house should be run, how she thinks um what she sees her role as, what she sees her partner's role as, the quality of life that she expects, or not quality of life, I should say the standard of living that she expects. What's going to be a a bigger shock? The sort of the clash, the expectations versus reality in terms of that, or the difference in their core values and how they rate those values. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that it's I think that the sort of like the core values and the culture pretty much melds into one because
Mm,
I mean if you go to like that flat for a local in DR is probably a very, very nice flat. And what
right.
David chose was the bougie flat rather than the area, probably because it was outside of his rental. But I think that it's down to their ethos. If you look at sort of if it might just be the way that they're showing it, but he likes to kind of like wander around the beach drinking a beer when he's got the day off. He's not really bothered about the big brands. He's a good-looking guy. He probably needs to go at the gym very little because he's just got like the abs. He was assigned abs at birth, and he's like he's just one in that sort of like genetic privilege of being able to kind of like not do a great deal to work out and still look phenomenal and
Yeah.
pull in the benefits that come with that.
Mhm.
So for him, living a good and healthy like living an exciting and active life doesn't necessarily mean having to wear the Dolce and Gabbana and going out to nice restaurants. He just wants to go down at the beach, chill,
Right.
meet new and interesting people and sleep with them. Whereas Tion wants she wants the condo and the credit card and the Cadillac, like the three C's or whatever you call it. And she wants to be
I've
able
never heard
to.
that before.
I just made it up just then.
Oh, I
But
like it.
um, um, it's it's more just the. I think that she wants the sweet life, but she wants the champagne lifestyle on a lemonade salary because I'm
Mm,
assuming the DR doesn't pay a teacher's salary like they would in the UK, which is also laughably small, but
right.
probably some degrees higher in quality than in the DR.
I think it's also one of the things that she has said about herself that stuck with me is she talked about having ambition, and I think ambition is a word that is used against women, as in ambition is a pejorative if you use it when you're talking about a woman, and I I normally take umbrage with that. Um but she talks about how she's motivated, she has ambition, makes a good she makes a good salary, and she's motivated to to be the best, and blah 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 blah. I don't know if anyone else's experience is similar to mine, but my attitude is you either have that drive or you don't, right? I was born with it, or it was drummed into me. I just have it. I'm somebody who always has to work. I need to be working or I get depressed. If I'm not working or
Same.
creating something, I go into a very dark place, and it's very hard for me to get out of it. Um but when it comes to defining achievement, I kind of want to say to her, "You know what? That's really fucking easy from where you're sitting, but you have no one depending on you. You have no rent to pay. You live with your mom, and there are no, like, you don't have to be a parent to have somebody depending on you, right? Like, y-
I
I
don't know
think,
whether salespeople are the same all the world over, but as soon as I saw Tion on screen, I just kind of went, "She works in sales,"
yeah,
and
of course she does.
it's probably a mobile phone shop. I don't know why. I'm just kind of getting this sort of like clairvoyance. It's they they are all of a particular character type. Um,
See, I think she sells package holidays. She would be brilliant on The Apprentice. she is on the wrong show.
Oh, there isn't a throat that she wouldn't step on to get up the next ladder of
Oh,
her career. Like
I
she's got
would
that ruthless type A
right?
psychopath sales mentality. Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
love to watch her on The Apprentice or any competition show. That's what it is. I don't like her for this show. This isn't the right fit for her. She needs to be competing against other people for a prize. What did you how do you read David in terms of emotional maturity? Because I felt like this could just be me and I might be jaded after so many years of watching these shows, plus my own um sad history. Uh, But did you think the tears were sincere and that feeling of like, "Oh, this is the woman I wanna spend the rest of my life with," because it creeped me out. It felt
They were not Sinead tears. They were not real tears. They like
right?
it this the thing is like it was I don't know, maybe it might have been the first day of filming, which is obviously going to be a daunting experience. Might have had about 3 hours sleep worrying about it, and he could just turn them on a little bit. But David's, I think David at the heart of it is a nice guy. He's a maths teacher, so he's obviously intelligent. I think that
Sure.
he's possibly ended up sleeping with one of the tourists and it kind of spiraling out of control as we have seen before.
Yeah, I don't have high hopes for them. And again, it's sort of it feels a bit it feels like a story that we've already seen that they're not going to bring anything special to. Like I think we've seen variations on this theme like I've seen the um I've seen the Matthew Bourne uh ballet of this at Sadler's Wells and it was good. That is a niche arts joke. Um Matthew Bourne is
There's a couple of highbrow listeners in
I
their
know.
flat in Cheltenham just kind of
I know it's the
just
golf clap.
patting at
Yep.
their phonogram Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah, there was a titter. No, Matthew Bourne because jokes are always funnier if you explain them. Matthew Bourne is a very talented choreographer who I love. Um, but his source material is predictable, which
Mhm.
isn't necessarily his fault because just like with God, I could talk about this for hours, but just like with the West End straight plays, we need to get off of Ibsen and Chekhov and Tennessee Williams. We just need to step into this century. Please give me one play and have it not be I guess they did Orlando Bloom did that Tracy Let's Play a while. Anyway, we're getting very niche here. Um
Just whilst we have a natural break, Tion's a letting agent, which now makes perfect fucking
and
sense.
circle gets the
Yeah,
square.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah, yeah.
yep. Okay. That makes
Thank you, baby.
total sense. Thanks, cousin Jordan.
Michelle says thank you.
Indeed. So shall we head on over to the West Country to Gloucester, where the wee babber is getting bigger and bigger in her belly. Um, so I think we need to explain possibly if it's of interest to anyone. Um, at grocery stores here in England, I don't know about elsewhere in the UK, but in England, in my little bubble where I live, you can buy little disposable barbecues that you just light and you can put on a table, and that is what her son was using. I've never seen one of those in America. I imagine they exist, but I had never seen one until I came here. So that's what that is. It still takes them forever to get hot. So I don't think that those burgers were fully cooked. Do you?
I think they did the trick that I've done before when I've used those, because they're also legitimately terrible and a massive fire hazard. You
Yes.
basically cook everything in the oven so it reaches a nice core temperature, and then you just mark it off in on the disposable barbecue. But I would also be incredibly surprised if any other country tolerates them, because they are terrible. Cousin Jordan's from Australia, and I think that she thinks that they're just ridiculous. Because obviously that's the country of, kind of like famed barbecue, probably better than the South.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jose and Louise are. I feel like they could have done with a card to represent the fact that this is probably 4 or 5 months down the line, because Louise went from, in one episode, from having zero bump to now being sort of like second trimester levels pregnant. So we haven't really kind of like got to grips with what the passage of time is. All we know is that Jose is still, his English is not where it possibly needs to be.
Can you speak to that directly, because I've piped in the information that you've given us, but what's the next step from here after the sort of comprehension of a 5-year-old English
So
test?
if we go from sort of like A1, which is like a super rudimentary of English, and it will be single word answers, it will be yes, no, it will then, an element of it is literally pointing at things on a screen, and you have to say blue, red, cat, the number 13, house. You then progress up the rankings, so that'll be within Jose. His
Sorry,
next
can
up,
I interject one
yeah,
question? Do they fuck with you? Like, do they write the word green, but the ink is in blue?
this is not a psychometric test.
Okay. Just
this isn't
just
this
checking.
isn't Dr. Kawashima's brain training. Shout out to 2010 Nintendo DS owners. But no, it isn't designed to trip you up. When you get
Okay.
to A2, you're then looking at slightly more fluency in the sentences, but some sort of a lack of fluency is still permitted, but they're starting to kind of get there. When it comes to your indefinitely to remain, again, if you're coming under the family roots, which is what Jose will be coming under, there's never an expectation of you to learn how to read and write English. It's just speaking and listening. When you get to indefinitely to remain, it's level B1. Now, level B1, it gets a lot more difficult. It will be a case of you have to um, do 4 subjects, learn 4 subjects that you'll be questioned on. You can pick one,
Mhm.
and then another subject will be picked by the examiner on the day, and that's out of a possible 4. So you pick one, and then they'll pick another. The
Oh.
reason for that is that they don't want the applicant to learn from rote. So I don't go in there and go, my
Right.
name's Dan, I have a cousin called Michelle, she is married to Robin, they record their podcast in a shed. What they then do is question you a little bit more, and it'd be like, so tell me about Michelle. Is she blonde? Is she brunette? And it starts to elaborate more. So you actually have to have a fundamental understanding of the language by that point, which is where a lot of applicants really struggle, because if you're, say, for example, from sort of like a South Asian country like India or Pakistan, and say, for example, you're it's predominantly it affects women from that society because they can basically move into a neighborhood. They can go to a
Mhm.
shop where their applicable language is spoken. They then go home and converse with family members and other members of their community without ever having to really speak to anybody who's English, only speaks English. So
Right.
my citation source for this was that I used to work do some sideline work in an office in Manchester where Trinity did the examinations.
Right. So what topic do you think would be Jose's choice? And what
Chicken?
topic do you think is that one of the available
No.
topics? No. What
No,
are the available topics?
that I don't know. I think it would probably be family life. It would be things tied to work, film, culture, that kind of thing. I can look it up,
Right.
but yeah.
Um Man, this segment was a feast for the senses. Uh we had Jose being given a bath, um which again underscored the part of their
Dommy mummy.
relationship dynamic that I yes, that I find the most disturbing.
We
Um
don't kink shame as long as it's with
I
consent.
No, you know what? That's true. That's fair enough. Um I can't get a foothold on this because there is a part of me that believes that this entire thing that they're both in on the joke. That two people this ridiculous can't possibly have come together without having planned it ahead of time.
I mean, how you meet people is kind of within it takes all sorts, I've met I've had sort of like, kind of like relationships with people I've met on Instagram and all that kind of thing. I just find it really strange that Jose's got 2 million Instagram followers. I always find that like so he's obviously very, very popular with an audience in Colombia and probably Latin America. Um, why he would then want to come to the UK, I don't really know because I don't think necessarily his shtick translates to a British audience. I think we find it a curiosity more than anything.
Right, but does that have its own but do they together have some kind of appeal? I mean, I think about I don't know how many seasons of 90 Day Original Recipe you've watched or the assorted because you're relatively new to this, right?
I came into the 90-day industrial complex kind of um UK started. So that was my initial interest in it. Aside from sort of the walking meme that is Big Ed, I didn't really have a great deal of exposure to it apart from Big Ed and then sort of 90-day
Sure,
UK.
sure. Um, so there's a couple. There are very few couples that I think uh, are worthy of a spinoff. Number one, and two, if they get a spinoff, um, can maintain a certain level of interest. Happily Ever After is my least favorite, or I'll just say I don't like Happily Ever After. It's the movement in the opera, in the cycle, if you like. of the 90-day uh performance that I value the least, because by the time a couple gets onto that show, they're already kind of spent, and you already feel like you're getting diminishing returns because you know what the primary conflict is, and it's often not very fun to watch that come up again and again and again and again and again. CF Angela and Michael, CF uh Libby and Andre. For me, that's it's one woman's
Mhm.
opinion. I don't enjoy that. I feel like I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface of Louise and Jose.
I would suspect that they will be back for a second season because he's gone now. So we obviously we don't know what's going to happen. I suppose, in a way, what we've seen is sort of a before the 90, like what 90 Day UK's managed to do is kind of like do sort of like an amalgamation of 90 Day the other
Of
way,
the
before the
3, yeah.
90, and
Mhm.
OG um 90. So it's interesting that they're wide open to come back. Going back to sort of like the events of that episode, just when so I keep saying this to cousin Jordan all the time, right? Um, Jose has this energy where the first thing he does when he gets into the hotel room is that he runs over to the complimentary biscuits and eats them so nobody else can get to them. He has that kind of childlike energy about him that's, you know, I okay, so me put right, maybe it's my vanity, but I wouldn't be sat there whilst the cameras are on me, just sort of like hammering my way through Pringles and looking completely indifferent. I'd be trying to do my best to look engaged in the conversation, even though I probably didn't understand what anybody was saying. Like, and that might trip me up. I might be there, kind of like nodding in approval at something that was absolutely shocking and completely disagreeable, but I'd be trying to do a decent job of it. He doesn't do that. He just disengages, and that might be down to the passage of time that's happened since we first saw him to now, which is some months. Maybe he's just kind of overwhelmed by the fact that he can't really understand what's going on in front of him, so he is completely internalizing.
Is he internalized? I mean, sometimes I feel like they sort of treat him like Alf. Um, I know not everyone will I'm fully aware of what century we're in, and also
So
that
are you
that Alf
referring
is
to the feline consuming strange thing with a giant nose? Yeah,
yes.
okay.
TV alien where like people will everyone acts like he's been there forever and he's just something that you can talk around. Um and I keep wanting to scream in these scenes. There he's a person. Jose's a person with feelings and thoughts, and he's there, and you're talking about him like he's not gonna
It's the one thing that I always
or
find incredibly objectionable is when a group of people are talking about somebody when they're not even there. But that's the thing. Sometimes I think that mentally he isn't there. I think he's just vacant. Um, and I know that's
do you
bad,
think
but
but is he doing an Andy Kaufman type thing? Like, is this a performance? Is he actually the only reason I raised that is because I have looked at his social media, and either he has an editor who isn't Louise, because no offense, Louise, but um grammar is not your strong suit. Uh he has quite well written captions in English on his social media that tell compelling stories and are written like he has a professional copywriter. So if he's not writing them and a professional copywriter is writing them, who's his manager? And is there somebody behind the curtain that we're not even seeing? And is that person like, do you know what I mean? I feel like this world is so much bigger than what we're looking at. And I mean, they had this whole like they had a Facebook post where she's going to I was very confused about this whole thing. She was getting an ultrasound, I think, but like
Oh,
Pam
was
it
it
was
the
a sponsored?
4D one? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a sponsored post.
But this is the world of
Um
influencers. You can, they're either they can make a representation to the place that they're going to, or they will have a management company if you're of a certain size, and they'll say, for exposure, we want this service, and we'll post about it afterwards and say nice things about you. It's
yes, no, I understand. I used to
mm.
work in PR. I understand how it
Okay.
works. What
Sorry
I
for
don't
them splaining,
understand is
but
what is
yeah.
the No, no, it's fine. It's fine. What I don't understand is who's grinding the organ? Who is the sophisticated person managing his career if it isn't him? And if it's him, how is this not a character that he's playing? And how is she not an extension of the Jose-niverse? Do you know
Are
what I mean?
you
Like for
positing that
all
Jose is an industry plant?
I think I am. I think
Wow.
I think we are all collectively on a Colombian sitcom called like Jose Todo
It's
or
the
something.
it's the sent elsewhere theory. Are you familiar with this?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
There's an element of that. But I as in I wonder if there's another show being produced where he is the star and this like chicken woman is flapping about making a fool of herself, and she's got the sort of son husband keeping an eye on things. And I
He's
don't mean that in a sexual way. I mean that in a he's more like a father son than a son husband, I should say.
mm,
But he's playing that paternal role. He's a parentified child, which is, too sad to contemplate. But yeah, I
he's
I
also the
cannot shake the
MVP of the
feeling that the
series. He's so good.
yes, correct. I just can't shake the feeling that the joke is on us and not on them. I feel that so strongly, and
I mean, Jose could be a
I
backdoor
can't put my
pilot
finger
for
on
90
why.
Day Columbia.
I'm sure there is one. There has to be, right? I mean, if this is so I know Married at First Sight, I want to say was a Danish show originally. I think that 90 Day Fiancé is a Matt Sharp joint. I think the IP is American, but I imagine that there's one in Colombia. Um, if for no other reason than they've got a substantial crew ready and waiting there. We've seen a lot of Colombia. Um, anything else on them?
Um, I suppose it's a case of time will tell. With those two,
I didn't get a chance to do this for the last two, for the previous two guests that preceded you, but to close us out, um, I'm going to uh, run through the Pivot's questionnaire, which was made popular by the television show Inside the Actors Studio, hosted by the
Oh,
late,
James Lipton.
great James Lipton. Yes. What is your favorite word?
Fuck.
What is your least favorite word?
Serendipity.
Fair enough.
Because it's the meaning is
Um,
bullshit and there's too many syllables. And it's offensive to write.
uh, Now this is interesting. I don't remember. Okay. So James Lipton changed question number 3 to make it more TV friendly. It's not on the original questionnaire. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Um, Communication, consent,
Uh what is what's your favorite curse word?
fuck. As we had
Yeah,
as a
I
favorite.
figured. I debated. Um, what sound or noise do you love?
The sound of um my little our little Papillon Tilly snoring in a crate.
Aw. What sound or noise do you hate?
Loud chewing.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
A sex worker.
Interesting. Um, what profession would you not like to do?
Cop.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You did all right there, babe.
Aw. This makes me emotional every single time. Thank you. Thank you so much to Cousin Dan for pulling a double shift this week as co-host and producer. We are very grateful to you. To all the Robbleheads out there missing Robin, he will be back soon. He's thinking of you and missing your kind words and loving adulation. Follow us on the Instagram and the Twitter at Blighty Day. Blighty is spelled Blighty. Join our Facebook group, Blighty Day Bays, BAES. And finally, patreon.com/Blighty Day. You will find all sorts of benefits there. We're really just getting started, but it's going to be fantastic. We have got ad-free episodes. This video is going to be put up at some point. It may not be at the same time that the audio goes up, but at some point you'll get to see our beautiful faces. Once Plathville starts, we're going to be recapping Sister Wives and Plathville in one on the Fundy bus. We just put up a recap of Real Housewives of New York. You never know what's going to happen. There are multiple tiers. You can choose one just based on how you're feeling that month. There's, do what feels right for you. Just know that all the shekels you put forth are going straight into the pockets of Cousin Dan here and our wonderful social media director, Peggy Ann. And having got all the housekeeping out the way, we will
See you soon.
see you soon.